You ever wonder how old the Earth really is? We're told a number, 4.54 billion years. A number so precise it feels like fact, like we've cracked the code of deep time itself. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That number isn't the age of the Earth in its entirety. It's just the age of the oldest surviving rocks and meteorites we've been able to measure. Because the Earth is not a museum. It doesn't carefully preserve its past. The Earth is a recycler, a restless, shifting, grinding machine. The continents drift, plates collide, ocean floors dive down into the mantle, vanish and melt. Volcanoes bring new land to the surface. Wind, rain, ice, and oceans tear mountains down grain by grain until nothing remains. Everywhere you look, the planet is formatting itself. Now imagine the Earth as a hard drive. When you delete a file, most of the time you can recover it. Dig deep enough and the fragments are still there. That's history we know. Temples, bones, writing, cave art. Tens of thousands of years back, we can still recover the files. But what happens when you format a hard drive? The slate is wiped clean. Try recovering files from that? It's almost impossible. That's what the Earth has been doing for billions of years, not just deleting history, but formatting it, over and over again. So when scientists say Earth is 4.5 billion years old, what they're really saying is the oldest surviving fragments we've tested are that old. Zircon crystals, meteorites, tiny time capsules that somehow avoided being recycled. But how many other fragments, how many other stories have been melted, crushed, buried, and destroyed beyond recognition? Think about this. The oldest fossils we've ever found aren't dinosaurs, or plants, or even animals. They're microbial, stromatolites, little mats of bacteria dated at 3.5 billion years old. There are claims of microfossils as old as 4.2 billion years. But beyond that, silence. It's not that the Earth wasn't there. It's that the record has been obliterated. Now compare the numbers. Dinosaurs ruled this planet for 165 million years. Modern humans? 300,000 years. Written civilization? Barely 5,000. If our entire history was a single heartbeat, dinosaurs had a marathon. And yet even their bones, scattered across the globe, represent only fragments of what once was. So here's the question. If there had been intelligent life before us, truly advanced civilizations, would we even know? If they existed after the dinosaurs, we should expect some fossil record. A femur, a skull, a trace in the strata, but we don't. Which means if intelligence rose before us, it must have been long before the dinosaurs, hundreds of millions of years ago, maybe billions. And everything they built, everything they left behind has been dragged down, melted, and recycled. Imagine that. Entire civilizations formatted out of existence. Countless cycles, rising and falling, never to be seen again. And if that's the case, we're not the first. We're just the most recent, the latest version installed on Earth's hard drive. This is part 1 of the Earth's hard drive, a special Cherrywood Conspiracy Files mega-series. These conspiracy episodes will now run every Friday, a regular slot just for you. And when Simon and Rachel bring on a guest, that episode will drop the moment it's ready. No waiting, no filler. So tonight we ask, how old is the Earth really? Not the rocks we can measure, not the crystals we've found, but the planet itself. Could it be older than we think? Could the age we quote be nothing more than the last surviving scraps of a history that's been reformatted over and over again? Because if the Earth is a hard drive, then most of its data has already been erased. And the only question left is, what files did we lose forever? They say the rocks don't lie, that the fossil record is the history book of life. But here's the problem. Most of the pages are missing. The oldest fossils we have aren't of animals or plants or anything complex at all. They're microbial, little bacteria-like colonies called stromatolites, layered mats that lived 3.5 billion years ago. In Canada, there are claims of microfossils even older, 4.2 billion years. If that's true, then life emerged almost as soon as Earth cooled. But for billions of years, life remained microscopic. No cities, no machines, no monuments. Fast forward to about 600 million years ago, and suddenly we see something new. The Ediacaran biota, strange, soft-bodied organisms, some shaped like fronds, some like discs, some with patterns that look almost alien. They appear, they thrive for a while, and then they vanish. No descendants, no clear link to us, just a brief chapter, then erased. Then comes the Cambrian explosion, 540 million years ago. Life as we know it, complex animals with shells, bones, and eyes, bursts onto the scene. Almost every major group of animals appears in a geological instant. Before that, it's silence. After that, the fossil record begins to fill. Dinosaurs rule for 165 million years. Mammals wait in the shadows. 65 million years ago, an asteroid ends the age of the reptiles and gives mammals their chance. And eventually, out of that, comes us. Now, here's the catch. Homo sapiens have only been around for about 300,000 years. Our version of civilization? Barely 5,000. That's nothing. A flicker. A blink. So think about it. If intelligence like ours had existed 10 million years ago, what would be left today? Maybe a few bones? Maybe some stone tools if they happened to get buried in just the right way. But the further back you go, the slimmer the chance. Fossilization is rare. Most living things decay without a trace. Whole species can rise, flourish, and vanish, leaving nothing behind. Now, stretch that thought further. What if an intelligent civilization had existed before the dinosaurs? 200, 300, 500 million years ago. The odds of finding their fossils, their structures, their machines drop to almost zero. The rocks they lived on have been subducted, melted, recycled. The surface they walked has been erased. And here's the kicker. We think of fossils as common, but they're not. Dinosaurs ruled for 165 million years, and yet we only have a patchwork of their remains. Whole species lived and died without ever leaving a single bone for us to find. If that's true for giant reptiles, how much more true would that be for intelligent beings? This is the silence of deep time. It doesn't just hide evidence, it obliterates it. And so we ask, is the fossil record really proof that intelligence didn't exist before us? Or is it simply proof that the Earth's recycling system works? Because if civilizations had risen and fallen long before humans, the odds of us finding even a trace are close to none. Their fossils would have been ground to dust, their cities pulled into the mantle, their monuments melted into magma. We say humans are the first, but maybe we're just the first whose traces haven't been completely erased. If the Earth is a hard drive and fossils are the deleted files, then where do we look for proof of intelligent life that came before us? In 2018, two NASA scientists published a paper called the Silurian Hypothesis. The name comes from a British sci-fi story where reptilian beings, intelligent and ancient, once ruled the Earth in the Silurian age. The hypothesis asks a simple question. If there had been an industrial civilization on Earth millions of years ago, how would we know? Their conclusion? We probably wouldn't. Skyscrapers, roads, machines, even plastics. Over millions of years, they'd be crushed, melted, or dissolved. Fossils? Too rare. What might survive are only geochemical fingerprints. Things like unusual isotopes in the rocks, spikes of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, tiny residues of metals that don't occur naturally, the kind of evidence we might mistake for natural anomalies, never realizing they were signs of intelligence. So maybe the proof of past civilizations isn't in bones or ruins, but in chemistry, hidden in the stone, waiting to be recognized. And then there are the so-called OOPArts, out-of-place artifacts, items that some claim were found embedded in coal seams or inside ancient rock, spark plugs, hammers, metal spheres. Mainstream science says most of these are hoaxes or misinterpretations. But even one genuine artifact would rewrite history. If Earth really is a formatted hard drive, maybe now and then a corrupted fragment survives, a clue that doesn't fit the timeline. But maybe the greatest clue is something else, something deliberate. Take Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a vast megalithic site with carved pillars and circles, dated to around 12,000 years ago, twice as old as Stonehenge. What makes it stranger is that it was deliberately buried. For thousands of years, it lay hidden under layers of soil until its rediscovery in the 1990s. Why would people build something so monumental only to hide it? Could it have been a message sealed up for the future, a way of saying, this is what we knew, this is what we were? And Göbekli Tepe isn't alone. Across the world, we find pyramids, stone circles, and megaliths aligned with stars. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its near-perfect alignment to true north. The Nazca lines in Peru, etched into the desert. Massive trilithons in Baalbek, Lebanon. Stones so heavy we'd struggle to move them even today. Why stone? Because stone lasts. Longer than bronze, longer than iron, longer than silicon chips and plastic drives. Our computers, our DVDs, our USB sticks, they're fragile. They'll be gone in centuries, maybe less. But stone endures. It was the first medium we ever carved into. Maybe it's also the last. So here's the conspiracy. What if ancient builders weren't just building for their time, but for ours? What if pyramids, buried cities, and megaliths were designed as messages through deep time, not for their children, but for us, the next civilization, the next cycle? A way of saying, we were here, and we wanted you to know. And then we have to ask, how old are these monuments really? Are they as young as the textbooks claim? Or could some of them be far older? If Earth recycles its surface, maybe the only evidence that survives is the evidence people deliberately hid in stone. If you were part of a civilization and you wanted to leave a message for the future, not for your children, not for the next 1,000 years, but for millions, how would you do it? You wouldn't use paper, it rots. You wouldn't use computers. Hard drives fail in decades. USB sticks corrode, DVDs delaminate. Even cloud servers are only as good as the electricity keeping them alive. One big solar storm, one collapse of infrastructure, and they're gone. So what's left? Stone. Stone is the oldest medium humanity has ever used, and maybe it's the only one that stands a chance of surviving deep time. That's why the first records we have are carvings. That's why the first monuments were megaliths. And maybe that's why so many ancient civilizations poured their energy into pyramids, temples, and stone circles. They weren't just building for themselves, they were building for whoever might come next. Look at the Great Pyramid of Giza, perfectly aligned to true north, built with a precision we still marvel at today. Official history says 4,500 years, but some researchers argue the weathering on the Sphinx shows water erosion far older than Egypt's desert climate. Could these monuments be survivors of an earlier epoch, built to endure beyond memory?
Or take pyramids in other parts of the world. From Mesoamerica to China, step pyramids rise across continents separated by oceans. Did different cultures just happen to choose the same shape? Or was the pyramid a deliberate design? A triangle, a structure that resists time, built to last longer than anything else. And then there's Göbekli Tepe, deliberately buried 12,000 years ago. Imagine the effort of creating those megaliths only to hide them. Was it protection? Was it a time capsule? Or was it an instruction, a message buried in stone, waiting for someone like us to find it? Even today, we don't think this way. We build quickly, cheaply, for now. Steel, glass, concrete, impressive in the moment, but fragile in the scale of deep time. Given enough centuries, most of our skyscrapers will collapse into dust. Our data, the billions of terabytes we treasure, will vanish, deleted in an instant. So ask yourself, how many civilizations before us made the same mistake? How many relied on fragile materials, on methods that couldn't last, only to have their entire legacy erased? Maybe some of them learned better. Maybe they realized the only way to talk across millions of years was through stone, through triangles, through geometry, through structures aligned with the stars. Maybe the pyramids are not tombs at all. Maybe they're messages, markers that say, "We were here. Look closer." But here's the problem. Even stone doesn't last forever. Earth recycles everything. Mountains crumble, temples collapse, plate tectonics drags the crust under, volcanoes rewrite the land. Given enough millions of years, even the greatest pyramid will be gone. Stone buys time, but it doesn't buy eternity.
If you wanted to leave a message that might survive the Earth's endless cycles of destruction, what would you do? You could carve it in stone, yes, but stone weathers, stone collapses, stone is eventually recycled. Maybe the only way is to bury it. When archaeologists uncovered Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, they realized it hadn't just been abandoned, it had been deliberately buried. For thousands of years it lay under layers of soil, perfectly preserved, waiting to be rediscovered. But why? Who would build such vast circles of carved pillars only to cover them over with tons of earth? Was it an act of protection? A time capsule for the future? Or a message across the ages? This is who we were. Don't forget us. And Göbekli Tepe is not alone. Across the world, we find stories of cities lost beneath the ground, beneath the ocean, beneath layers of myth. In India, divers have explored the ruins of Dwarka, an ancient city said to belong to the god Krishna. Submerged structures stretch across the seabed, some dating back 9,000 years. Are these just natural rock formations, or are they the remains of a city deliberately swallowed by the sea, preserved under silt and sand? In Turkey, entire underground cities have been found. Derinkuyu, with tunnels, chambers, even ventilation shafts, large enough to house tens of thousands of people. Mainstream history says they were built a few thousand years ago, as refuges. But why so deep? Why so elaborate? Were they hiding from enemies on the surface, or from something greater? And then there are the myths. Nearly every culture speaks of a great flood, the Bible's Noah, Mesopotamia's Utnapishtim, the Hindu story of Manu, the Aztec legend of Coxcox. Stories separated by continents, yet united in theme. A world destroyed by water, survivors carrying knowledge into the future. Could these myths be distorted memories of real events, ice age floods, cataclysms that wiped out civilizations, leaving only fragments underground? What if entire cities were deliberately entombed, sealed away, so that one day, when the earth was ready, someone would find them? What if the layers of myth and soil are not accidents of time, but part of the design, Ancient people building not just for themselves, but for whoever came next. And if they did, then what are we missing? What cities are still out there, still buried, still waiting? We've mapped so little of our oceans. We've dug into so little of our crust. How much knowledge lies beneath our feet, deliberately hidden, deliberately preserved? Because here's the paradox. Our civilization stores its knowledge in fragile ways. Hard drives, clouds, paper, plastic. One disaster, and it's gone. But ancient builders, they used stone. And sometimes they buried that stone. If you wanted to send a message across not just centuries, but epochs, that might be the only way.
Up to now, we've asked, what if civilizations before us left messages in stone or buried their knowledge underground? But what if some of them realized the truth, that nothing on Earth lasts forever, that the planet formats itself, erasing every trace? If you knew that, what would you do? You'd look up. You'd look to the stars. You'd start a space program. We think of space travel as modern. Rockets, satellites, moon landings. But why should we assume we're the first to reach for the sky? If intelligent life existed millions of years ago, wouldn't they face the same problem we do? How to preserve their civilization against Earth's resets? And wouldn't the logical solution be to send something into space? Think about our own efforts. The Voyager probes launched in the 1970s, carrying the golden record. Greetings, sounds, music, languages. A message in a bottle, drifting into interstellar space. Today, Voyager 1 is over 15 billion miles from Earth, moving at 38,000 miles per hour. Unless it collides with something, it could last for billions of years. Long after Earth has erased every trace of us, Voyager will still be out there. So here's the chilling thought. What if we're not the first to try that? Could UFOs be the legacy of a past civilization's space program? Machines launched long before us, still orbiting, still visiting, still carrying out missions we don't understand? We assume UFOs are extraterrestrial, beings from another world. But what if they're terrestrial? What if they're from here? Just not our time. Think about how long machines can outlast their makers. The pyramids are 4,000 years old and still standing. Voyager may outlast us by billions. Now imagine a probe built millions of years ago, designed to endure. Wouldn't it still be here, circling the planet, dropping in, observing the next cycle of life? This theory isn't new. In 1954, a man named Donald Keyhoe claimed the US Air Force was tracking mysterious satellites orbiting Earth before humans had launched anything. In the 1960s, researchers pointed to the so-called Black Knight satellite, a dark object in polar orbit, photographed and tracked, but never explained. NASA says it's space junk. Conspiracy theorists say it's older than us, a relic, a probe. If that sounds far-fetched, ask yourself this. If we can send probes into interstellar space after just 70 years of rocketry, why couldn't another civilization do the same, given millions of years? And if they did, wouldn't their machines still be here, long after the Earth recycled everything else? Maybe UFOs aren't aliens. Maybe they're not future humans. Maybe they're the messages of a past intelligence still functioning, still circling, waiting to be understood. And here's the real kicker. If that's true, then maybe they've been trying to contact us. Maybe the lights in the sky, the disks, the craft, they're not visitors, but reminders. Proof that we're not the first. Proof that civilizations have risen before, left their mark in space, and been wiped from Earth, formatted into nothing. When we talk about UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called, the question is always the same. Where do they come from? Another planet? another galaxy, maybe even another dimension. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if the real question isn't where they come from, but when? Because if civilizations have risen and fallen on Earth long before us, then maybe UFOs aren't extraterrestrial at all. Maybe they're terrestrial, from Earth, just not from our era. Think about it. If an intelligent civilization lived millions of years ago, they'd face the same problem we face today. Nothing on Earth survives deep time. Cities crumble, fossils are rare, volcanoes and tectonics wipe the slate clean. So if they wanted to preserve themselves, they'd have to look beyond Earth, build machines to last, send probes into orbit, create technology designed not for decades, but for millennium. And maybe that's exactly what UFOs are, the leftovers of their space program. Ancient probes, drones, or machines still operating long after their makers were erased from the Earth's surface. Look at the reports. UFOs appear suddenly, then vanish. They don't always behave like crewed craft. Sometimes they act more like autonomous drones, scanning, observing, never making direct contact. Isn't that exactly what we'd expect from machines left to monitor a planet for millions of years? And then there's the secrecy. Governments collect data, films, radar tracks, but release almost nothing. Why? Maybe because the truth is too close to home. It's one thing to admit aliens exist. It's another to admit we might not be the first intelligent species on Earth, that our entire history might just be the latest cycle in a much older story. Some researchers point to the Black Knight satellite, photographed in polar orbit in the 1960s, long before we launched anything that could explain it. NASA says it's space junk. Conspiracy theorists say it's older than us, a probe from another civilization, maybe even one of Earth's own. If UFOs are probes, then the next question is, what are they trying to tell us? Are they warnings? Are they monitors recording our progress, waiting to see if we make the same mistakes they did? Or are they simply evidence that someone was here before us, a signature written not in stone, not in fossils, but in the sky above our heads? Because here's the haunting possibility. Maybe UFOs are the message. Maybe the lights we chase, the objects that vanish from radar, the craft that outfly our best jets. Maybe they're not visitors at all. Maybe they're reminders. Proof that intelligence has been here before. Proof that Earth has hosted civilizations that reached for the stars, and that their only surviving legacy is the machines they left behind. And if that's true, then every sighting isn't a mystery. It's a clue. Every object in the sky isn't a stranger. It's family. A message from the ghosts of Earth's earlier cycles, still watching, still waiting. If the Earth is a hard drive, then what presses the delete key? Sometimes it's slow. Tectonic plates grind, mountains erode, volcanoes bury and recycle. But sometimes it's instant, catastrophic, the kind of events that don't just erase species, but entire worlds. Scientists say there have been 5 major mass extinctions in Earth's history: the Ordovician, the Devonian, the Permian, the Triassic, the Cretaceous, each one wiping out most of life in a geological blink. And if we're honest, there may have been others we simply can't see because the evidence has been recycled. The most famous is the Cretaceous-Paleogen extinction, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. A rock 6 miles wide slams into Mexico. A fireball circles the Earth. Dust clouds block the sun. 75% of species vanish. Dinosaurs, dominant for 165 million years, are gone almost overnight. But what if they weren't the only victims? What if any civilization existing then, intelligent, advanced, hidden in the corners of the fossil record, was wiped out too, their cities incinerated, their traces obliterated? Then there's the Permian extinction, 252 million years ago, the worst die-off in Earth's history. 90% of species gone. Entire ecosystems erased. Scientists blame massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia, releasing gases that choke the atmosphere, heating the planet to deadly extremes. Imagine living through that. Imagine a civilization thriving before the eruptions, then watching their world burn, their monuments drowned in fire, their memory deleted. And it doesn't take asteroids or volcanoes. Supervolcanoes exist even today. Yellowstone, Toba. If one erupted fully, the ash clouds could darken the skies for years, collapse agriculture, freeze civilization. Humans barely survived the last Toba eruption 74,000 years ago. Our numbers dropped to a few thousand breeding pairs. One more nudge, and maybe we wouldn't be here at all. And then there are the ice ages. Walls of ice advancing and retreating, grinding landscapes flat, burying everything beneath them. If cities existed before the last glacial maximum, they're now under oceans or lost beneath layers of glacial rubble. Maybe Atlantis isn't a myth, but a memory. A flood story born when the ice melted and the seas swallowed coastal cities. Each of these catastrophes isn't just a tragedy for life. They're resets, formats, the delete key pressed hard. Civilizations, if they existed, would be wiped away in an instant. Fossils shattered, buildings buried, knowledge gone. And millions of years later, we'd never even know they were here. So ask yourself, are these disasters random, or are they part of the Earth's design? A built-in cycle to clear the slate and start again. Because if they are, then maybe intelligence has risen again and again, only to be struck down by the same pattern of resets. And here's the thought that should keep us awake. If it's happened 5 times before, it'll happen again. The question isn't if, it's when.
If Earth recycles itself, if fossils are rare, if stone itself eventually crumbles, then what trace will our civilization leave behind? We like to think our cities are permanent, towering skyscrapers, endless roads, bridges, and power grids, but give it 10,000 years without maintenance and it's gone. Concrete crumbles, steel rusts, glass shatters. Even nuclear waste, sealed in containers, will eventually corrode and leak into the soil. Our information, even worse. Hard drives, DVDs, USB sticks, servers, fragile and temporary. Centuries at most before they decay or are wiped by solar storms and corrosion. Billions of terabytes of human knowledge gone like smoke. Our civilization is advanced, but its memory is brittle. So what will survive? Maybe a few stone monuments, the pyramids, Mount Rushmore, carvings into solid rock. But give the Earth millions of years, and even they will be worn flat, subducted into the mantle, recycled into magma. Nothing lasts forever here, except one thing. In 1977, NASA launched 2 spacecraft, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Each carried a golden phonograph record, the Golden Record. Etched into its grooves are greetings in dozens of languages, sounds of Earth, music from across cultures, even a map showing where we are in the galaxy. A message in a bottle flung into the ocean of space. Voyager 1 is now the farthest human-made object from Earth, over 15 billion miles away, moving at 38,000 miles per hour, drifting in interstellar space. Unless it collides with something, it could last for billions of years. Long after every trace of us is erased from the surface of Earth, Voyager may still be out there. Think about that. Our longest-lasting monument may not be the pyramids, or the Great Wall, or anything built on Earth. It may be a tiny probe, smaller than a car, carrying a golden disc through the void. Maybe one day it will be found, by aliens, by future humans, or by the next civilization to rise on Earth after us. Maybe they'll hold it in their hands, spin it, and hear our voices across the abyss of time. And then the question becomes chilling. What if we're not the first to do this? What if civilizations before us also built their own Voyagers, machines launched into orbit,
probes sent into deep space, messages encoded into devices designed to last forever. Could UFOs be their voyagers, circling back around, reminding us they were here? We think of Voyager as our triumph, our one eternal footprint, but maybe it's just our version of something that's happened before. The latest file uploaded before the hard drive is formatted again. And so we arrive at the ultimate question. Are we really the first, or just the latest in a cycle of civilizations, each erased, each leaving only faint traces in stone, in myth, or drifting silently through space?
And so we arrive at the ultimate question, the one that has haunted every step of this investigation. Are we really the first intelligent civilization on this planet? Or just the latest? The science says Earth is 4.54 billion years old. But as we've seen, that number is only the age of the oldest unrecycled fragments we've been able to measure. Everything before that has been wiped, melted, formatted. Fossils give us fragments, but fossils are rare. Entire species rise and fall without leaving a trace. Civilizations, if they existed millions of years ago, may have been erased so completely we'd never know they were here. So we look to stone, to pyramids, to megaliths, to monuments aligned with the stars. Maybe not tombs, maybe not temples, maybe messages. And we look underground, to cities deliberately buried, to myths of floods, to ruins lying beneath the seas. Were they accidents of history, or deliberate archives sealed and hidden for us to rediscover? We ask whether civilizations before us reach space, if they launch probes, machines, voyagers of their own still circling above us. Maybe the UFOs we see aren't aliens at all, but they're messages, monitors left behind, reminders that we're just the next cycle to walk the Earth. And then there are the catastrophes, asteroids, supervolcanoes, ice ages, each one pressing the delete key, each one wiping the drive clean. 5 times life has been reset. How many times has intelligence been lost with it? And now it's our turn. We've built great cities, fragile technologies, brittle memories. In millions of years, almost none of it will survive, except perhaps Voyager, our own golden record, drifting between the stars, a tiny voice saying we were here too. So, are we the first? Or are we just the latest? The Earth doesn't keep our records. It deletes them. And maybe the only way to speak across millions of years is through stone, through burial, or by casting our messages into the stars. But if other civilizations have already done this, maybe their messages are still waiting, in the ground, in the sky, or already orbiting above us. This has been Earth, the planet that reboots, part of the Cherrywood Conspiracy Files. These episodes will now drop every Friday, a regular slot for mystery, questions, and hidden truths. And when Simon and Rachel sit down with guests on the Cherrywood podcast, those episodes will go live as soon as they're ready. No waiting, no filler, just conversation, raw and real. And here's where you come in. If you've got a strong theory, if you've seen something you can't explain, or if you believe you've connected dots the world has missed, we want to hear from you. Get in touch. Maybe even come on the show. Because the Cherrywood Conspiracy Files isn't just about the mysteries out there. It's about the people willing to ask the questions no one else dares. So I'll leave you with this. If the Earth is a hard drive, then we are just the latest file. The only question is, will we leave a message strong enough to survive the next format?
Club Awesome, for autistic children and their families, a place where everyone belongs and fun knows no age limit.
Today's sponsors are De Medici Associates, chartered, structural and civil engineers.
Based in the UK with a worldwide reach.
Visit their website on demediciassociates.com.
Right at Home Medway, providers of safe and trusted quality care for adults in the comfort of their own home. Whether you need companionship, medication assistance, personal care, living care or more, we've got you covered. Visit rightathome.co.uk/medway or call them on 01634 979 000.
Are you looking for cleaning or facilities management? Clearwater Kent is your trusted local expert. From roofs and driveway cleaning to fully facilitated management, they're a fully licensed, award-winning business that you can count on. Visit clearwaterkent.co.uk or call 01634 681 885.
Need stunning video or photography for your big day or even your business? Cherrywood Production delivers award-winning results with a personal touch. From weddings to promotional content, we turn your vision into reality. Visit cherrywoodpro.com today. Your memories, our passion. Put your business in front of 30,000 new customers with the Hindsight Directory. This A5 full-colour magazine is delivered by Royal Mail to Maidstone, Gravesend, Medway and Bromley, with more areas to come. Visit hindsightdirectory.co.uk.
New Digital, helping businesses build their online presence with web design, SEO, Google Ads and social media. Get 10% off when you quote Cherrywood today. Visit their website at nudigitalera.co.uk.